What's up guys, this is Muhab, and in this video we'll be talking about Facebook and Tesla's Q1 earnings of 2020. I've literally uploaded a video today on YouTube, and now I'm working on a second video because of the exciting news that we got. I have exams in like 2 weeks time and I need to study more. However, I couldn't resist but to make a YouTube video. This is going to be more of a podcast rather than a scripted video, so I'm just going to show you what I'm reading or what I'm looking at, but there won't be much editing in this video just because I want to get the news and my opinion on YouTube as soon as possible. So first of all, let's start with Facebook. Facebook has surprised many analysts by beating the earnings. They got revenue 17.74 billion, up 18% from the 15.08 billion that the company reported in the first quarter of 2019. And Facebook said it counts almost 3 billion monthly users across its family of apps compared to 2.89 billion in the previous quarter. And as a result of beating the revenue, the stock share rose as much as 10% in the after hours. So now it's actually 10.5%, so it's back in the 200s price. It's now $215, which means we're profitable again in the stock, because like my average price is 194, I guess, around that region. However, there are a few things that I need to note. The earnings per share is actually lower than expected. So they got an earnings per share of $1.71, while analysts surveyed by Refinitiv expected $1.75 in earnings per share. However, again, this quarter is different because of what's happening right now. So the fact that they were really close to the earnings, and with everything that is happening, and they also beaten the revenue, all of that has resulted in a really positive outlook to the stock, and that's why we saw more than 10% growth in the stock. Also, there's one more thing that Mark Zuckerberg said in the call, which also contributed to the raise in the stock price. He mentioned that the price of ads is now stabilized. So he said that Facebook said it is now seeing signs of stabilization after seeing an initial steep decrease in advertising revenue in March due to the thing that is happening right now. Early data for April looks more promising, the company said. This echoes what Google saw on Tuesday with its own advertising business. So if you guys don't know, yesterday Google released its financial sheet, and they also have beaten the estimates, and the stock price also raised a lot today. However, the CFO David Winner is remaining cautious on the second quarter, and that's why I'm making this video. However, we'll talk more about the second quarter once we review Tesla and once we finish talking more about Facebook. So surprisingly, Q1 earnings revenue per user is also much higher than Q1 of 2019. So in Q1 of 2020, Facebook is making 6.95 revenue per user, which is extraordinary compared knowing that they have around 3 billion users across their platforms. Now I don't know exactly how much it was in Q1 of 2019, but I would say slightly more than $6, while in Q1 of 2020 it's closer to $7, and that's again extraordinary. And Facebook also said that it counts 3 billion monthly users across its family apps, as I've mentioned, compared to 2.89, and the metrics used to measure Facebook's total user base across its main apps, so Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp. And this is also a reminder that WhatsApp is still not advertised, so it's something that they could leverage in the future, and it's something that is extraordinary. The US and Canada Facebook user also rose to 195 million daily active user from 190 million a quarter earlier, and its user base in Europe increased to 305 million from 294. Now, why these numbers are important? Because advertising revenue per user is much higher in US and Canada and Europe compared to other countries, so these numbers are important. Also, Facebook made around 300 million from other stuff like Oculus Rift, their hardware, and stuff that they're trying. And what's also really interesting and what's really important, and that's something that I talked about on eToro, it's about capital expenditures of 2020. It's now expected to be in the range from 14 to 16 billion, down from the original expectation of 17 to 19 billion. That's great. and I've mentioned that in the fourth quarter of 2019 because they had higher expenses due to the few scandals that they got into. However, now as things getting better, the expenses are getting lower, they're helping more businesses, they have great amount of cash. So the company has I think around $20 billion worth of cash. I'm not sure exactly how much, but it's around that range, which is extraordinary. I would have found the exact number, but as I've mentioned, this video is not really scripted, and I can't really find it in CNBC's website, even though like I remember reading it before starting this video. And what's important now is that the amount of cash that they have, the great amount of cash that they have, allows them to invest and do some bets in different stuff. So they've invested 5.7 billion in India's Geo platform last month. And Zuckerberg said that he always believed that in times of economic downturn, the right thing to do is to keep investing and building the future. And that's extremely great because they have the cash to do that. And Zuckerberg explained that investment in Geo platform relates to the company GeoMart strategy to get millions of small businesses online communicating and processing payments through WhatsApp. So the strategy of making money through WhatsApp could be by processing payments rather than putting ads, which makes more sense if you ask me. Now let's head on to Tesla, and Tesla really surprised me because I wasn't expecting them to beat analysts' expectations, at least not by that much. So the expectations was that Tesla is going to lose around 0.2 cents, so well, negative $0.21 earnings per share, while they made 0.09 earnings per share. So they were profitable in the third quarter in a row. Now, they didn't make much profits, it's just 9 cents a share. However, the difference between what's expected and what they got is extraordinary, and that resulted in the stock rising in the after hours by almost 9%. The stock price is getting closer to $900, so it's now $871 in the after hours. I made a video, actually the video that I uploaded today, I talked mostly about Tesla, and I mentioned how at the $800 to $850 price, it's counted in a lot of the profits that it makes. So I'm still a bit cautious about that price. It seems like there's a lot of hype, and my expectation is that when the stock market opens on Thursday, there's gonna be a rise in the stock price, and either by Friday or by end of Thursday there should be a drop. I highly doubt the stock is going to reach $1,000 in these 2 days. However, I might be totally wrong, and I mean, if it reached $1,000, I'm an investor in Tesla. Tesla is my third largest position, so I wouldn't say no to that, even though I sold a bit at $800. So that's something that I also wanted to mention. In addition to all of that, Elon Musk has mentioned that the lockdown is infringement of people's rights and that there shouldn't be mandatory shutdowns. He mentioned that it's outrage that will cause great harm not just to Tesla but other companies and suppliers, Musk said in the call. And that's really interesting, and that also makes us go to my point, which is Q2 of 2020 is going to be, the reports are going to be interesting in the second quarter of 2020, because that's when the real situation that is happening right now is going to be counted in, because the lockdown started by the end of March, so it wasn't really affected by the first quarter of 2020. Now I'm interested in Alibaba's first quarter of 2020 because that's gonna actually reflect the current situation, because you know it happened initially in China and started much earlier in China, and the lockdown happened much earlier in China. So whatever is gonna happen with Alibaba can be forecasted, for example, for Amazon or maybe other companies. So I'm going to be really interested to see the first quarter of 2020 for Alibaba, which is going to be released on the 20th of May of 2020. And I also talked about it in the video that I've released today, and I'll make sure to leave the link for it in the description below and at the end of this video. Moving back to Tesla, Bill Sleeky mentioned that the results were quite impressive given the difficulties incurred towards the end of the quarter because of the current issue. And he mentioned that going forward, the most challenging quarter of the year will be the second quarter, as I've just mentioned, given the dislocation caused by the thing that is happening right now. He said, "My biggest worry is that demand for Tesla vehicles may take a pause as people grapple with unemployment concerns and less discretionary income and putting off buying an electric car." And also, one more thing that he mentioned that's really important, he said that as gasoline prices remain weak, consumers may just want to keep driving what they have and repair what they have until the economic climate comes back to a better place. Jeremy from Financial Education mentioned that gasoline prices doesn't really reflect why people buy Tesla, and I partially agree with him. However, at the same time, I would like to add to that, when people are in a certain lockdown, even when if they have cash, they're not gonna spend it on a car. So what they're gonna do is that they're gonna leave the money saved just to make sure that they have the leverage, just like what companies do that have cash. They leave that cash most of the time just to make sure that they can pay their interest, that they can invest if they want, but just so that they have that liquidity. So I highlight that a lot of people who wanted to buy the Model 3 are gonna actually buy it. They might delay that purchase to maybe the end of this year or maybe at the beginning of next year, which will affect the demand for Tesla for the second quarter. And that's why this quarter is extremely important, and I'm really interested to see how things are gonna turn out, although I'm not really optimistic about them. Tesla mentioned that they're gonna be selling around 500,000 cars this year, which is really good. And what's really important is that Tesla said its gross margins remain strong with the Model Y, and that's what's really interesting. So in the future, once things get resolved and people start buying the Model Y, Tesla are gonna make a lot of profit with the Model Y. And I think since Americans usually like to buy the SUVs like the Model Y, I feel that there's gonna be a really good demand for it, and that means that with a large gross margin, in addition to the good demand, that's gonna turn out to be really good for Tesla. However, again, in the 24-page letter, Tesla did not mention the pandemic at all when it comes to the Model Y explanation. It only mentioned them as challenges or uncertainties, which is a bit concerning because there's nothing really specific. And I don't really blame them, because the thing that is happening right now is very unpredictable, which means we don't really know when things are going to open, when things are going to close, and that's not really the best way to make forecasts. However, when it comes to Facebook, the best thing about Facebook is that, as Mark Zuckerberg mentioned, the ad revenue or the ad rate is getting stabilized, and since it's getting stabilized, that's going to make it easier to make forecasts. However, when it comes to Tesla, since it's physical, they're going to have hard time when it comes to making profits and actually selling cars, especially in the second quarter and maybe potentially in the third quarter. However, when it comes to Facebook, they're actually doing really good, because Mark Zuckerberg even mentioned that now Facebook Lives are becoming the theaters and the primary venue for many events, because no one is planning to visit any physical events right now. So as I once mentioned, I think in my previous video too, this pandemic is kind of benefiting Facebook. Not only it's benefiting them in terms of reputation, not only it's benefiting them potentially in terms of profit, but in terms of investments, now things are probably much cheaper to invest in, since the price dropped hugely. So that's a really great thing for Facebook. I remember writing a post about an eToro. It didn't get pinned, unfortunately, because my risk score got a bit higher than 6, so it got to 7, which means they can't really share my post and pin them. However, hopefully by next month, which is tomorrow, 1st of May, things are gonna go back as it were. So Tesla, as I've mentioned, the stock rose around 9% now, almost 9%, which is extraordinary. However, as I've mentioned in conclusion, I made this video just to warn you about the second quarter. So don't get greedy with the results that we're seeing and the raise in price. The current incident wasn't really affected much by Q1, or like the current incident didn't really affect Q1 that much. That's why many analysts weren't really optimistic about Q1. However, I'm not sure if they did, but I think they didn't really count that the current situation didn't really affect Q1 that much. The interesting part is Q2. Q2 might be really bad for some companies, especially Tesla. I mean, seeing what Elon Musk wrote regarding that this lockdown is going to affect many companies negatively, and that mandatory shutdown is outrageous and will cause great harm, which might be true for companies like Tesla. So I'm a bit concerned about Q2 for Tesla. Not so much for Facebook, however, a bit more for Tesla, because I think people are going to still advertise, especially with the government giving money to the US citizens. I think I watched one of Gary Vee's video. He said that people are still spending money on things, so that might really benefit Facebook, because people are gonna advertise these things. But when it comes to Tesla, it's a large investment for many people, which means it might not be the best thing for them, because people are not gonna buy these cars because they cost much, at least in this quarter or potentially even in this year. So it's gonna be interesting seeing the results for the next few months, and I hope you guys got value out of this video. If you have any questions, make sure to write them in the comments below. I'll make sure to share Facebook's video and Tesla's video that I made a few days ago, and I'll make sure to share today's videos by the cards at the end of the video, and I'll make sure to place them in the description below too. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. This was Muhab, my first podcast, my first unedited podcast. I'm not sure, I might make a few edits here or there, but that's about it for today. Thank you for listening to me. This is Muhab, and I am signing out.